We are Gold Ivy.
Our mission is to empower you to own and unleash your truth.
Stories of resiliency are gold, and ivy grows in hard places.
Those hard places are what creates space for light to shine through.
You decide what works for your daily life and how to transform our lessons into your gold.
This is Ivy Unleashed,
a Gold Ivy production. Brooke, what do you think everyone wants more of?
Energy.
What do you think most people are hoping to come out of 2023 with?
Feel more confident, be an example for others, actually have the self-discipline to take care of themselves.
Yes, exactly. Because we hear the need for it and we want to help you get in the best shape of your life, we created Move with Gold Ivy, our virtual workout platform.
Our dream has been to create accessible, affordable, and effective workouts that you can do anytime, anywhere, designed to hold you accountable and get you the results you need.
You can pick any workout you want at any time, but if you do want a plan that alternates muscle groups and leaves your body feeling energized and strong, we have a weekly plan that you can follow to take the guesswork out.
It's easy to navigate and packed with all kinds of workouts that will help you strengthen, trim, pump up, tone, energize, de-stress, all of the things we want our body to feel. It's within Move.
Don't forget to mention the resources we offer. As a member of Move with Gold Ivy, you'll be a part of our exclusive Ivy League community, where we share our top wellness resources on things like meal planning, gut health hacks, time management, and more.
And because you listen to the Ivy Unleashed podcast, we want to offer you all of this for only $20 a month, cheaper than any monthly membership you'll find.
Not only that, you'll get a free trial week to test it out.
And if you need more incentive to start prioritizing you, here's our favorite part. Your movement matters. Each month, 10% of your membership will be donated to support the mental health of those in need.
So head on over to goldivyhealthco.com/move or find the link within the show notes of this episode and sign up today. Stop putting yourself in the back burner. Snag your spot and reap the benefits that you deserve to feel this year.
It's your time. Move for your health, move for your confidence, move for your mental clarity, move with Gold Ivy.
Well, let's talk about your journey from being in rehab to what you do now and what your work looks like now. How did you get to that point of, okay, now I'm actually going to help people that were me?
Well, I did not have a plan to do this. It just found me. Like I really didn't. And sometimes I'd be around people in my business and I'd be like, we just want to help everybody. And I think, do you really feel that way? Like I was married to a musician in recovery who had a pretty big career in Europe. And, you know, he was also in recovery, and different friends would be touring in the States and they would ask me if I wanted to come with them. And I was like, well, I really can't not work. You know, I'd love to travel. And they'd be like, well, we'll work something out. Right. So that kind of kept happening because people were afraid in early recovery of coming, and backstage, all their old dealers, everybody would show up with drugs because they were notorious for it. So like that would happen, but I didn't think of it as a job. But then what started to happen is a lot of people I knew, I was writing, and people I knew in the entertainment industry would be, you know, there'd be something going on. Somebody at a dinner party would be saying, you know, the star of the show or blah, blah, blah. Somebody, you know, is like crashing and burning. And they'd say, oh, a friend of mine works with addicts, meaning me. And I didn't know that I worked with addicts, but they knew I was doing this stuff. I was like going on the road and things. So it just started to sort of come that way. And then, you know, I didn't really talk about it with people. You know, it was just like, it felt right, but it wasn't really anything that was happening. Like you'd meet people who toured with bands and who did that in LA, but it wasn't really a thing. You know, it was kind of somebody would hear about somebody who would hear about, you know, and you'd hear, that's how it would come together. And then a friend of mine published a story, I think in the Paris Review, and it was about a writer who like wasn't published, who was working as a sober coach, and his client was a young upstart writer who was wildly successful. And I remember reading it and thinking, whatever happened with that? I should find out about that. And then I saw another friend of mine who had gone on, I'm talking about people who, like, when we met in early recovery, like nobody had these jobs. So this other one, it's like the head creative of like a major record label. And he had just quit to teach at NYU. And we were having lunch and I go, what do you think I should do? I feel like I need a change. And he said, why don't you be a sober coach? I'm like, what? How would you do that? He goes, I don't know. I'm in New York now. I know in LA. Why don't you contact your friends in LA? See if anybody knows. And so I contacted two friends. I go, do you know, like first that book, that story kind of put this idea in my head because, it had been a little while. It had been going on. I'd been like doing this through word of mouth, but not like where I thought of it as a career, and I read that book and then my friends like that, you'd be great at that. Like you do it anyway, you'd be great at it. And so I sent 2 emails out to friends who have nothing to do with sober coaching. And they both wrote me back about this guy. And one of them said, well, this guy, I sponsor him and he had just relapsed, but he needed money. So I told him he could put his website, but he could not take the clients because he does not have any sobriety. And so he's coming to New York to find somebody for a job. And I gave him your number in case you knew people. So I swear to God, like from the minute I sent my friends an email, 24 hours later, I was like working with someone up in Westchester. It was so weird, but it felt right because at that point I had like, almost 20 years in recovery and a lot of experience, plus I'd done this stuff, since like 97 periodically with people in entertainment, and then sometimes their therapist would recommend someone, but it wasn't anything that I was seeing as something that would take over it was always like just a little something I did that felt really good, but it wasn't like my career, if that makes sense. And then the next thing, I get an email or a call from A&E that they want to do a show about sober coaches and they got my name. And I figured, well, that's only because there's probably 4 people in the country doing it. Of course you got my name. And then later they told me, no, we talked to hundreds of people. I was like, there are hundreds?
So talk us through what your work looks like. So you are a coach. You're not a therapist. You live in with a lot of these people. So walk us through what that journey really looks like.
So the way it always looked prior to Terry Cole, I would live with people instead of them going to rehab. And, sometimes it was because they didn't want a paper trail. Sometimes it's because they'd been to 17 rehabs and just had no desire to go back. But, I always have a therapist on board. And if they needed a psych eval, like a really good psychiatrist that they could meet with, like I don't pretend to be either. And we would just put together a whole lifestyle change. Because really, the whole thing is someone alone with their own thoughts. They're going to feel worse. They're going to feel depressed. They're not going to feel better being alone. And there's this thing that's running out of time that's getting weaker that wants to get back in charge. So it's going to keep like playing off. You're depressed. You're like a loser. You're never going to be loved. You're going to die alone. It wasn't that bad of a problem. It's just a misunderstanding. And so alone with their head, they'll just like convince themselves that it's okay to have one drink and then be off. Right. So, just keeping the beat going so they don't have that kind of alone time. It's a big part of it in the beginning. But, we would work out, we do yoga, we meditate, we like cook together. Sometimes I teach them how to buy groceries, like whatever someone's needs are. So in the beginning, it was pretty simple. It was just like bring a healthy lifestyle in, going to some kind of like support network, because it's really important. I believe it's so much harder and so less fulfilling and rewarding to try to do this alone. Like people want to do it alone. A lot of times, if I really dig, it's because there's a lot of shame around it. Like it's still going to be their secret. And if you have shame and it has to be a secret, you'll probably drink again, because shame and regret are like really powerful ways to fuel that thinking and those feelings in a negative way, that alcohol is the only solution, right? So, luckily now there's, some people are like, I don't want to go to AA. It's like, okay. I mean, they'll do it with they don't know anyone who's ever gone. They don't know what goes on. They've seen it on TV, but they have some idea about it. It's like, okay, there's like Dharma recovery, that's like a Buddhist based thing. There's smart recovery, which is like a CBT kind of based. There's different places to go now to get support, to find other people who are in recovery. I've told clients, listen, I don't care what you do. You need 2 friends who are sober. And I don't mean people who don't drink. I mean 2 friends who drank and are now sober and in recovery. I don't care if you have to put an ad on Craigslist. I need sober friends. You have to do that for us to work together. If you're not going to go to meetings or any kind of support group, you have to do that. You have to have a therapist and a meditation practice, and you have to do some kind of volunteer thing in your community, and not donating money. It has to be face to face. Like if you do those things, those 4 things, I'll let meeting part slide, because you'll get what you'd get from a support group by doing those 4 things. Yeah, it's just easier to go to a meeting.
Yeah. And it speaks to the power of support, of not doing it alone, because to your point, you are alone with your thoughts. I think when you're in real society, out of your house, right, there are so many triggering moments, like you mentioned earlier, sitting at a bar and you see someone drinking. So I'm curious what tools you give your clients to use when those triggering moments happen.
Well, I really believe, like now when I work with people, I have, it's been fine-tuned over the years, so I can kind of tell what someone's going to need based on just my read of the situation. But like certain tools, building shock absorbers, I look at the feelings that people might feel, or they might be oblivious to. Like, I don't know why I drank. I didn't drink for 60 days. I didn't think about drinking. And then suddenly I was drinking and I don't know what happened, right? Like the ones who are experimenting and doing it at home. There can be a disconnect, an emotional disconnect. So you're not going to feel things like other people might be craving. So they know when they started craving things. But some people are just like, blank, just shut down. Now I'm drinking. I don't know what happened. So I just look at it like whether you can feel your feelings or you can't feel your feelings because of the trauma you've experienced. If you look at anxiety and stress as a thermometer, you come in with a baseline. So if you came in with, a dysfunctional family, kind of adverse childhood experiences, maybe you're coming in where your anxiety baseline is a 3.5. If you've come in with trauma, like real trauma, things have happened to you, you might be coming in at a 5, drug-free, right? So in the course of a day, between your mind manufacturing bullshit and life bringing stuff up, being hungry, not getting enough sleep, feeling lonely, being tired and not going to bed, all those things, it's going to creep up in the course of a day. If it gets to around 8, 8.5, cravings are going to start coming up. Gets to 9, impulse control is out. Like you might just grab it. You might make that call, have the dealer come over, right? So when I'm working with people, I say, we're going to build shock absorbers. So you're going to meditate, you're going to exercise, you're going to get fresh air, and you're going to make sure you eat and not skip meals. And I don't care if you're eating pizza and you're eating birthday cake, you have to have vegetables and fruit and good protein. Like you have to do that because we're building shock absorbers. If you have a photo shoot tomorrow, you don't go to the gym today to get in shape. You start in advance. So you don't go, oh, okay, what tools can I use when the shit hits the fan? No. You want the shock absorbers so that instead of getting up to 7.5, you're only getting up to 6. Because the shock absorbers are going to absorb a lot of that and help you learn how to be in your body with these feelings. It's the beginning of learning how to regulate your emotions, right? So you do these things on a regular, and now, surprise, surprise, we have neuroscience that can talk about how the plasticity of the brain changes, but it's through repetition. Mm-hmm. So that's why people work out like 3 or 4 times a week. Twice a week isn't going to do it. You're not going to make those new neurological pathways. You have to do things through repetition. That's why with meetings, they say go to 90 meetings in 90 days. It's repetition. That's why with meditation practice, it's a daily practice or twice a day practice. So it's just like taking on these behaviors is like your insurance. The shock absorbers are some insurance, but life can still be crazy and unpredictable. And your heart could get broken, or someone could die, or someone could be in an accident. There could be something traumatic that you experience that's just going to make your thermometer go all the way up. So you have to have like people that you can talk to, who you can phone, who that when they phone you and they have a crisis, you make the time to listen to them. So they're going to make the time to listen to you. So we're not talking about friends and family. We're talking about sober friends where you just go, I need to talk. And they are just like, okay. They're not therapists. They're not going to have the answer, but that connection, that empathy, that love. And I really believe when people say, I don't know what meetings do, like, what's the point? You hear people in meetings. Now, I've gone to all different types of things, not just, I go to a 12-step program. It's not AA, but I do go to one because that worked for me, but now there are all these other things and I see them work for people, is that people say, I don't know what happens. I go in and I always leave feeling better, even if I don't participate. Well, I believe, and there are a lot of studies that are being done right now with our brainwave activity. And, like instruments, music affects our brainwaves, binaural beats will affect our brainwaves. And when we're all together, we're pack animals, and our brains do better when we're together than they do when we're alone. And if we're listening to someone sharing honestly what their life has been like, what they've gone through, how they feel, it's going to keep triggering empathy and compassion, which are really positive pathways. They're not fear and anger. So by going and listening, and everyone in a group setting is hearing and having these same kind of brain dance going on together, it's like a symphony of our little brains together, just wanting to live and feel better. And we actually leave feeling better. And so there's just something that you rob yourself if you're trying to do it alone. It's harder, and you have suffered enough. Like, just try to have an open mind and try one of these different types of groups to find, or go on Craigslist and say you need some sober friends. Just find a couple of people that you can talk to who have some experience with what it's like to have cravings and not drink, to have their heart broken and not get high. Like, just, you need peer support. It's just invaluable. Mm-hmm. People can do it on their own with a therapist, but why not give yourself the whole cake?
I love that. And I love that you've experienced this from the depths of the darkness to where you're at, where you have firsthand experience with all of it. And I think it's so cool that you're also talking about neuroscience. I feel like you've just pieced it all together. And, in the last few years with COVID and everything, a lot of people have struggled with addiction, might not even be aware how much they rely on it. So I'm curious about, thinking, if you've never really taken a break from alcohol or your substance, what would you say to people that might be completely unaware that they do have an addiction?
I think people know. They might just not announce it. Like, I remember thinking before I got clean, it was around 28, thinking, I've gotten high for more than half my life. Like, I remember thinking that, not necessarily thinking it's a bad thing or that I needed to stop, but I was really aware of it. And I thought, this is probably kind of weird. Is it going to just keep going like that? Because, that's that thing, 26 to 28, where you just start to have this, like, do a little quick inventory on my life. Like, is it going the direction I want? What needs to change? What needs to go? Am I on the path I want to be on? Like, kind of happens like that. And I think, people's, when when you don't have high consequences, if everyone around you is drinking the way you drink, and half of them are kind of questioning in the privacy of their own mind, is this getting out of control? No one wants to be the first one to say, do you think this is getting out of control? Because you might get kicked out of the group if other people don't want to hear it yet, So it's really a hard conversation to have because there's always someone worse. No, you don't have a problem. Look at her. Right?
Yeah, I had this scenario just this last summer. I was with a group of my neighbors that I drink a lot with. And I said something about, every now and again, I just don't drink for a month. I like to make sure that I can give it up, and anytime I do it, somebody else says something to me that they are thinking themselves, oh, I think about giving it up all the time. I think about this nonstop. And so it's so true. And I totally believe what you're saying. And it's actually like breaking my heart to hear how the thoughts that you had in your head, and just like how mostly everybody has some level of these feelings and thoughts where they're so hard on themselves, right? And it's so sad that these substances do this to us, and that it's available everywhere, and it's romanticized, and it's, if you're intelligent or sexy, you're doing it, and it's so sad to me. And so I'm curious how you feel about our culture and how we glorify these things. Like, when you see those commercials or ads, what happens to you as like someone that used to be addicted to these substances?
Well, like, I'm not anti-drug,
You're not? See, I don't know.
Reality isn't for everyone. And, and I know people who, like, the trauma that they experience in their childhood, drugs saved their life. And then they were able to eventually get help and get into recovery.
What do you mean by that? Like, what do you mean
that they probably would have killed themselves?
Oh, they would have killed themselves if they didn't
have something to numb the pain,
because the pain was so great that, they believe that. But, drugs eventually stop working. It all eventually stops working. Now, it might stop working for your spouse and your loved ones way before it stops working for you. And then everyone's on your back, right? And that's not usually like the great way of surrendering the whole idea of like, maybe I'll stop. When it comes from you because you've made the decision, when it's pressure from outside, it's a little bit different. But, when you make the decision yourself, chances are, like, it hasn't gotten to the place where people are giving you ultimatums. If it's a real problem, if it's really addiction and not just, because there's a difference. Not everyone who drinks is an alcoholic. Not everyone who parties. If you get 5 kids together, like, let's just say there's 17 and they've never taken anything before, and they all get together and somebody stole a bottle of something from their parents' house and they're passing it around and they're having a great time, right? A great time. Out of that group, there's going to be one kid who's just never felt so good in his life, ever. Like, secure, funny, confident, like all the stuff he's never felt before. So it's a really positive experience for him. Everybody else is having fun and they'll do it again, but he wants to know, well, when are we going to do it again? And he's going to find the other one who doesn't want to wait 2 weeks because the other one probably also just felt right for the first time. Those are the ones that are going to probably have substance abuse issues. Like, they're going to be the addict and the alcoholic. Now, the other ones who are just enjoying themselves, if it becomes and there's no addiction in their family, and they had no childhood trauma, and there's no mental health issues that are undiagnosed, what happens, I've noticed, is that feelings of loneliness tend to make women drink in the privacy of their own apartment more than men. And, so a lot of people, when they start to build this career up, and there's all this like Fridays, girls' night, we're going drinking, we're having like a destination wedding shower weekend where it's just an excuse to get like fucked up all weekend. because everyone works really hard. Now, it doesn't mean that they're all addicts who are doing that. They're just having a celebration. But the ones who are at home, who never used to drink at home, that used to just go to these things on Friday nights with the girls, but now they're like opening a bottle of wine at home because they're tired. They work really hard. It's costing them balance in their life. So they're not having the time to like enjoy themselves and enjoy other people and see their friends and see their family, because it's just like, oh, I'm in America. 70 hours a week is nothing for a job. I mean, in France, they're protesting because they want to raise the retirement age from 62 to 65. They are having protests, burning cars on the street. They don't want to work till 65. They already have a shortened work week. We're like 70 hours. Why am I so lonely? You're tired. There's no balance because you still want to go to the gym. You still want to go to yoga. You still want to do these things. So you're getting up at 4:30 in the morning now. You're getting home from work at 7. You're carrying in your groceries. You're going to try and make a healthy meal because you'll feel too guilty if you order pizza again. And then it's like, oh, I really wanted to watch something, but like, I guess I'll just binge all Sunday because now I'm too tired. If I start something, I'm going to be up too late. So I'm going to just go to bed. I'll read my affirmations. I go to bed. Like, they're trying, but there's no balance, right? And that gets really lonely. Mm-hmm. And so if you're opening up, if you never were someone who was opening up wine and having a drink at home or making a cocktail, like happy hour, like let's pretend we're in Mad Men. You've never done that before, but now you're doing it and you're noticing you're doing it more. My question is, what feelings are you comforting? If you're just tired, go to bed. Take a bath and go to bed. If you're lonely, just get on FaceTime and hang out with one of your friends for a little while without the drink. Like, just see if you can take care of yourself without drinking, because if you start to depend on alcohol or depend on weed to get through feelings of loneliness or exhaustion, or because you're a to-do list machine and it's not fulfilling and you're not feeling fulfilled, it will probably turn into a dependence. It'll start out psychologically, and then at a certain point, you'll be, even though the drugs are different and the backstory is different, that feeling of this relationship's not working anymore, and I feel all this inside, but without that, how bad am I going to feel? Right? Like, you can get there just with wine. You don't have to get there with heroin. Like, once the dependence, the psychological dependence and the habits been formed, and you fall out of all your other healthy habits, I mean, then it's a problem. It doesn't have to be a problem where you're getting DUIs and your partner is going to leave you and you're getting fired. It doesn't have to get there. But, if you are reaching out to healthy things on the side because you want that kind of life, you want to manifest, I'm going to use the word manifest because it's, people listening to your podcast are interested in having bigger, better, healthier lives, living larger, right? So if you're interested in that, try to self-soothe with something else. And if there's feelings underneath everything and you're able to like take the alcohol away or take the weed away and just self-soothe with like a hot bath, talking to friends, maybe doing some yoga, maybe telling your boss you don't want to work that much, reevaluating what's important to you. Like, what is important to you? You need time to be able to ask yourself those questions. And if you work all the time, you're just going to get lost from yourself because you're not going to know the answer. Right? So try to do that. And if the feelings just seem too much, you could always go to therapy. You could always, go to ACA meetings, AA meetings, NA meetings, Dharma recovery, smart recovery. Like, there's so many things that you can explore. It's not a marriage. You don't sign your life away when you walk in the door. It's anonymous. Like, you could go in and just be like, not for me, maybe next year, but like, just give yourself room to see what the truth might be. because not everyone who's having wine at home is an alcoholic. But people who are alcoholics, it doesn't start out as a crash and burn. There's a path that leads them there. So you could be that person on that path, and the same with drugs, but you won't know unless you examine more closer what your relationship with it is. And the only way you can do that is by removing it for a while. So your thing of taking 30 days off, is always good, as long as you're not, if I took 30, if they told me I could get high one day a year, you could stop me on the sidewalk any day this year, and I could tell you how many days were left until that day I could get high, because it would become the only important day in my year. So if you're taking your 30 days, but you're always aware of how many days are left, do 60 days.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Or 90 days.
Yeah.
So I have a question for those people that are in a very close relationship with someone that it just they've discovered it's hit rock bottom and there's no going back. They need to give up the alcohol. They need to give up substances. And what the process of that is to accept, I'm sure there's can't you just not be an addict? Can't we just keep our life going? I liked, we were drunk when we met and then I wanted to stay drunk with you and now we can't drink together. What have you seen with being a sober coach, being a recovery coach with people and that partner or close friend or family member that is witnessing it that closely? What has that been like?
Well, it's been different with different people. I mean, I had one woman say to me, just when we were alone, how, when they'd go out and they'd see these couples in their 70s who were still dancing and drinking together, she pictured them being that one day, and how removing alcohol for him was changing that. And they go on, every now and then they get together with friends and go on these yacht things and for a few days, and it would just be fun because they party, because she didn't really party that much and she's a mom with a lot of kids, so this would be really something she'd look forward to. And she realized that if he was going to be sober, that was going to change, even though she could still party if she wanted to, he wasn't making her stop. And because she was aware of it and could talk about it, it didn't become an issue, because all she had to do was we look back at what the consequences had been, how it had impacted her, how afraid she'd been when he'd been behind the wheel of a car and not home yet. All of those things, when he would disappear for a couple of days and how terrified she was that something had happened to him, remembering what his drinking, the experience had been for her. It's oh yeah, those stakes were really high, because when you're used to seeing someone suddenly who's sober and they're fun and you're getting the best of them that you'd fallen in love with, you can minimize that the consequences were that high because it seems so long ago. So being able to talk about that with her, she was yeah, I'd rather, if I had to give up being 75 and drunk with my husband so that he stays sober, I'm willing to give it up. But other ones who their own relationship to drugs or alcohol is different. They're the ones that, who'll go to detox and come home and it'll be well, I was trying to stay sober, but it was her birthday and she gave me permission to have wine to celebrate her birthday. Right after forcing him to go to rehab or forcing him to go to detox because she wanted someone to drink with her. And so then it's that thing of well, can't you handle it like I can handle it? But if she didn't have a problem with it, if her relationship to it wasn't kind of addicty, she wouldn't have that need to make him be okay with it. People who aren't addicts or alcoholics, if you tell them you're sober, they're oh, that's great. That takes a lot of courage. I bet you feel good. The ones who want to debate it with you and turn it into a big debate and make it a big philosophical thing about 21st century and morality, chances are they have a problem with drugs or alcohol, because most people don't have that kind of reaction. So it's the same thing with couples. It's if someone's that's their partner they do Molly with, and, have a fire pit in the summer, and they don't want to see that go away. If it's a deal breaker for them, they should look at themselves. If it's not a deal breaker for them, they just have to go through a little bit of grief about what might not be, but they don't know what might be. And the new person that they get back and the intimacy in the relationship, now that they're in a relationship with someone who is actually present and in the relationship with them. I mean, I had a boyfriend who was, I could have just had a boyfriend in prison. Like, he was in blackout through all our like deepest, most memorable things. I'd say, remember when we went to that flower thing? And he'd just look at me like, what? I'd be like, oh, were you not there? Was I in this relationship by myself? So like, if suddenly like your partner is present, the intimacy is going to be better. Like, you're going to have a real relationship now who's there for you, who really sees you because they are present. They are not just waiting for the next line of coke.
Well, it's interesting because if you've never had it, I think there's that question and that uncomfortable space of, we've always been drunk together. What is life like sober? And to hear there could be more intimacy, I'm sure it's like, well, maybe, I don't know. I've never experienced it. So I feel like I could see that you've got to give it the opportunity, right? And I think it is uncomfortable because it's new and it's different and you don't have the buffer. Like, when I've given up alcohol and I've sat with friends that I normally drink with, it's a little uncomfortable at first for both of us, because it's me saying, I'm doing this thing and I know it's weird because like we all normally drink together. It's a little weird for just like a second. And I kind of want to have a drink in that environment for a second because it's like, that's not what we normally do. And then the friend is normally like, oh, for a second, but then it passes. And then it's like a really good conversation. And if they are a true friend, you find out. And if they aren't, you find out because your true friends will chill with you in a sauna and like not drink. Like, I just had this scenario. My friend, she was like, oh, you don't want to drink? It's Monday. We have a drink together. And I was like, no, I'm not drinking this month. And she was like, okay, well, let's sit together in my sauna. And it was so great. And we like basically got high on life from getting hot in a sauna and jumping in snow. We felt like kids. But if we didn't give it that chance and didn't have the uncomfortable moment for like a second, we wouldn't have known that we can totally have this new dimension of our friendship, which is super cool.
Well, and it's like the fun things that draw people to each other and the qualities they like about each other and the laughter. Like, people will say, oh, I can't be around, none of that was real. And it's like, it was real. It's just, it wasn't that important because the drugs were the relationship that was more important, but the whole idea of, our society, I'm just, this going off topic for a second, but, guys are trained that they might stand a shot if they buy a woman a few drinks. It's not because they're all date rapists. It's just a lot of women won't give themselves permission to be horny and like allow themselves to have sex or sexual feelings. So they'll get drunk so that they can do one of those, like, I don't know, like what, like not be accountable. So then, for forever, I mean, Me Too's changed it a lot because guys are just scared shitless of us. But for so long, that was the dance that was happening in bars, because then, she could like be wild and have sex downstairs with someone that she would have never had sex with, but that she wanted to have sex with. You know what I mean? And guys know that they need to get her drunk. So when you tell someone, when you go to a bar and you're sober and they go, can I get you a drink? And you go, Coca-Cola, you just see this look of total disappointment come over their face. And you want to go, no, like, I'm talking to you, so you still stand a shot. But it's like, so it comes in so many different areas. So when someone stops drinking, it's like with your friends, like, oh yeah, we can have fun sauna and stuff. And then going to a bar and it's like, the guys like, the ones who don't want to talk to you after you don't want to drink, that's alcohol. You're not losing anything by getting rid of them. Somebody will get you a Coca-Cola, and that'll be somebody really interesting that you should have been talking to in the first place, no matter what they're drinking, like, it's like you said, you find out who your friends are, but like every social situation kind of, if being drunk or not is a deal breaker, like you can't put all your eggs in that basket because you'll never stay sober.
Yeah.
And with partners, one of the things is that I tell people that when there's alcoholism or addiction in the house, it is like having a flu in the house, and everybody gets a little bit sick. So you can treat the alcoholic, you send him off to rehab, send him, help him out. But then usually the partner should be going to therapy or Al-Anon or something, because if you have all kinds of resentments, you have the list in your head of everything that he screwed up, every time he lied, every disappointment, all the money that was spent, whatever. That's going to be between the two of you in bed. It's going to be between the two of you at dinner. Like, you need to be able to take that, all those feelings of being someone who was in a relationship with someone who wasn't really present anyway, which probably suited some part of you when you made that decision to make that your partner. Right. So like the transformation, everybody has to do a little bit of work, like just not heavy duty work, but just be willing to explore yourself, because that way, everyone can grow together. You can't have one person doing all the work and growing and think that you don't need it. Like, give yourself a break and allow yourself to have it, to have the experience of personal growth.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. And I think that comes full circle to how we started, of how not talking about your dad being an alcoholic affected you and your addiction, right? If you would have gotten help as a little girl, if you would have had someone be open and honest with what was going on, maybe things would have ended up differently. But they didn't. And now you're using that to help others, which we're so grateful for. So hindsight, but.
Well, my dad was sober when my brother was born. My mom wasn't on any medication. They were in their 30s. They could show up for everything. I was living somewhere else, so he didn't know about my addiction. And my brother has 21 years sober. So the apple really never falls that far from the tree.
Yeah.
Like, he would call me about ecstasy or something, like something he was going through. I'd be like, do you think you were hatched from an egg? Like, you came from the same two people I came from.
I'm curious about that, though, when your parents had addiction issues, right? Or maybe you haven't even, maybe you're a teenager and you're thinking about drinking or doing drugs, but it's in your family. What would you say to like a 15-year-old that's got some resentment over their parents' addiction issues?
Well, it's different for all kids. Some kids are like, I'm never going to do it because I don't want to turn into my parents. With me, I knew if I came home with alcohol on my breath, it would break my dad's heart. So I just went to drugs. They were never going to smell alcohol on my breath when I came home from a high school dance. Like, people make choices, I mean, if you're a kid and you are in a family where there's like alcoholism and you feel like you have nobody to talk to, and like, you don't know, like, if you drink, are you going to automatically like turn into an alcoholic? Like, go to some Alateen meetings, or talk to your counselor at school, to find a therapist, ask your parents to send you to therapy. Like, it's the 21st century. Like, the outside world and our inside evolution are not syncing up anymore. Like, we could all just like use space to breathe, someone to hear us, someone to help us solve problems. If we're by ourselves and we don't have the tools, like, you can't think your way into new feelings, but you can act your way into new thinking.
So powerful. I love that. If someone listening is like, I need more of Patty Powers, where can they find you, Patty? Where can they get more access to you?
Well, I have a website, Patty with a Y, pattypowersnyc.com is the website. And I have a blog. I haven't added to it in a long time because it's pretty much, once you say all the things that you say, it's just rehashing them. But if you go into it, it gives all kinds of, pretty much every experience you'll go through in recovery, like feeling wise, family wise, holiday wise. There's something there with tools to use. So you could look through that if you're like a self-starter. You could email me at patty@pattypowersnyc.com. When we were talking about working, I'd live with people. So I'd be with them for 30 days. I still do that quite often. But there are people, Terry Cole kept, when she was mostly seeing therapy clients, kept calling me saying, I have someone, I really think just a couple hours a week with you is all they need. And I'd think, I'm used to doing 24 hours a day, 30 days. Like what could I bring them? I'm not a therapist. You're a therapist. You see them hourly. And she just was convinced that like I could take my skill set and adapt it to different populations, that not everyone needed 30 days. And so I did this with some of her clients and I saw she was right. So I've found ways to work with people with a combination of email and Zoom, but in like I do a 90-day thing because I feel like you can count down 30 days and have a sober October, but 90 days gives you that time where you're going to experience different levels of feelings and gain some experience on getting through them and learning what to do around them. And even if you just are like, well, I'm probably not a substance abuser, but I just want to do this 90-day thing, it gives you like a experience of having all of your feelings without a buffer. Mm-hmm. So if it turns out later on that drugs or alcohol really are problematic, you will never forget that you made it through life for 90 days without anything and that it wasn't tragic, and it will help you to return to sobriety and to seek it out. And, but I only do it with complete abstinence because I'm going to teach you how to drink in a controlled manner coach. So, there are different ways that I do it. So, sometimes people just are like, what should I do? I can just send a quick email of like resources in their area if I know of them. It's like reaching out to me isn't like a commitment to anything.
I love that. Thank you for offering that people can reach out to, because I think a lot of times, like you said, it's so nuanced. Everyone's so different. And so you might not know what you need. And something you said I think is really powerful is, if you're unsure if you have a problem, to give it up for 90 days. Do no substance for 90 days. And if that scares you, you probably should do 90 days because you probably need to do 90 days. And so I'm so happy the way that you're talking about this with feelings, with society, with relationships. We are all living this. Nobody is immune to this. This could happen to anybody to come in contact with addiction, and most people have. So I'm just so grateful that they have access to you, and we will plug your information in our show notes so that they can find you. Yeah, so Patty Powers, would you please give our listeners your 3 gold stars?
Remember that it plays the long game. So when you're thinking alone with yourself and you're thinking it's never going to get better, it's always going to feel this way forever. When you hear never and forever in a negative way, know that it's just your corrupted thinking because it is trying to trick you into caving and giving it a little something, so it can get back in the control seat. It's really like smoke and mirrors. And one of the things is amnesia. It plays with amnesia. So you will forget how badly you felt and how desperate you were to get sober because you've been feeling good for 2 weeks. And you will start to minimize how bad it felt. That kind of amnesia is dangerous. So don't lose sight of that it plays the long game. So stay vigilant. Move muscle, change of thought. If you're feeling paralyzed by your emotions, you're ruminating over things, you're in fear, the negative self-talk is there, get up. Do some jumping jacks. Go outside, take a walk, call a friend. Just do something to get out of your thinking. And one of the things I'll do with clients is, like, if they're at work and they're freaking out, is I'll just say, take something in your hand. And for like 2 minutes, just 2 minutes, my phone is in my hand. My phone is out to the right, and watch it, bring it back. My phone is out to the left. And you could do it just in your lap with nobody at the office seeing you doing it. And just keep the focus on that, going from left to right. And it'll break that cycle of thinking. It'll take that train and put it on a different track. Another way you can take yourself out of that fear cycle is look at something and describe it in your mind in detail, as if you were telling a painter over the phone what you were looking at, so that they could paint it exactly as you see it. And that will take your brain off that train, off that track, and onto a different one. And, you might go back to like, does he love me? Doesn't he love me? Does he love me? Does he love me? Or whatever you're obsessing over. And just do it again. Just look at something, describe it, step outside, take a deep breath. There are actions you can take to get out of that building the thermometer going up, 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 up. It's just little tricks that you can do to dial it down. And the third one is get yourself 2 sober people in your life that you can get together with and just be yourself. And they will show up for you because they need you there too. It's mutual, just mutual support. Somebody that if like at 2 a.m. you're crying about somebody who broke up with you 16 years ago, and it's the third time you have to phone them about that, they're not going to make fun of you. They might make you laugh about it at some point, but they're not going to ridicule you because they've done something similar. Because we have a brain that is just going to try to get us to give up and to believe that the only comfort, the only thing that's going to make us feel better is what used to make us feel better. But if it still made us feel better, we wouldn't have stopped. So, you need a couple, you don't have to dance with everyone, but you got to dance with someone who's sober.
I love it. Those are so good. Oh, okay. More questions for you, Patty. This is our rapid fire question, Unleashing Ivy. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. My question is, in your experience, do you think people can have a healthy relationship with alcohol?
I think if somebody is an alcoholic, it is like being born with a certain amount of drug and alcohol coupons, drink tickets, and you've used them all up. And you're not going to find new ones. So if you go back to it, it's probably not going to be healthy. If you are not an alcoholic, and you are just going through something and you partied it out, you will be able to self-regulate again. It's up to you to examine what your relationship is with alcohol and be able to be honest with yourself about it. And if you can't be honest with yourself about it, have a therapist that you can be honest with, who you would trust to mirror back to you. Yeah. But some people age it out. Some people party hard in college, as hard as their addict friends, and then they find something they're passionate about and they move on with their life. And maybe on New Year's, every few years, they buy a gram of Coke and do it with their wife and go, whoa, doesn't this remind you of college? Not everyone who has a drink needs to stop.
That's good to know, though, because, it is a substance that alters our brain. And so, especially like me thinking about how much I think about my relationship, I'm always troubleshooting it because alcoholism is in my family and it's in my husband's family too. And so, and I have kids. So I'm just thinking like, is the best thing just to not? Probably.
Yeah. Or if you can't go, I think there's a lot of people in our life who they don't see they have a problem with it, but they drink every other day.
How do you know if you have a problem if you never stop?
Thank you, Patty Powers.
But how do you convince someone to look at that who doesn't view it as an issue, who doesn't want to see it as an issue?
They might just tell you to stay in your own lane.
What if your lane is in the same house as theirs?
Yeah. Well, you just have to, sometimes you have to sit down with somebody, with a third person there, to be able to communicate about the difficult things.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people are just defensive and they feel attacked. And if they're having a relationship to something and it's being threatened, they're not going to be that receptive to a conversation like that. They're just going to gaslight you to get on with it, So sometimes just having like, I think we should do a couple, some like group, whether it's like friends, a group therapy session or couples therapy, just a couple, just, so that you're in a position where you are both having to hear one another, where someone's facilitating that. Because when it's the hard stuff, it's hard.
Mm-hmm. What would you say about the ability for a relationship to continue on if that person's not willing to go to therapy or doesn't want to sit and talk about it, like what would you say to that person that's in that relationship that knows their person needs to do something about it and they're just not willing to even talk about it?
First, I tell them to go to Al-Anon or CODA meetings, or even read Carrie's book, Boundary Boss. Like, codependence is tricky because we can't save everyone. We can let people know that if they're in pain and they want change, that we will love them and support them. And how can I help? But you can't make somebody want help who doesn't want it. You can talk about how it's affecting you, but if it's something like, it's affecting me this way, it could be, it's affecting me this way, so therefore I am not comfortable going to the Thanksgiving thing we always go to because it affects me. I'm not trying to punish you. I'm just taking care of what I need. Like, you have to put the focus on taking care of what you need and not punishing that person because someone's ready when they're ready. And if it turns out that being in a relationship with someone whose problem is getting worse and they don't want help, you might have to remove yourself from that to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's all it takes to wake somebody up so that they get help. But, you can't fake it. You can't pretend you're on intervention and you're drawing lines in the sand that you're going to cross. Because once you cross the line, nobody believes those lines anymore. So, that's why you have to just do what you can. And when you know something is too much and you can't do it anymore, it's not about punishing someone because they have this disease and they don't really have a choice. And they don't know that they have a choice. They don't know that something else is like in the control seat, like protecting itself. They don't know that because they're feeding it, so it's just like, this is what I need. And this is how it's making me feel. And what are we going to do? I've tried not attending these things. I've tried, like, I love you. I'm worried about you. I wish you were willing to talk to someone.
Yeah. I just want to send compassion to anybody that is struggling with addiction or is very closely knit to someone that is struggling with addiction, because from personal experience and knowing people, this is brutal. And if you love someone that's an addict, a lot of times you think that you can do something that will stop them from drinking, or if they decided to drink, that it was your fault. And I think that's just heartbreaking to be the addict, and it's heartbreaking to be the person that loves the addict. And so I just want to send out some love right now to you and know like that we're here for you. And I hope that, Patty Powers is here for you, just to get some insight if you're kind of in that boat.
And Al-Anon is really helpful. You might have to try a few different meetings because people walk into ones where it's just all about like people talking about their teenage kids that are in rehab. And, so you want to find, you want to explore a few meetings. Like I'd say go to 5, to get a feeling for it, or get the literature and just read it, look at their website. Because what you're describing is like, I didn't cause it. I can't cure it. Right? Because it is about like, if I danced better, if I was smarter, if I was funnier, then they wouldn't, and we're not that powerful. All you can do is like offer love and support when they're ready. But you have to, how do you feel? What do you need? And honor that. There's nothing that's better for kids as a power of example than a parent who honors their needs.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And those needs, you need to set the time aside to figure out what those are. And you have so many resources. Patty just listed a handful, but that's something that as you're sitting with this feeling of just overwhelm, knowing that there are a lot of different things you can do to gain insights, to not feel so alone. And so anyone listening, feel empowered that there is something you can do to feel a little better. You can take that small step today. Send Patty the email, look at her blog, send us a message. You are not alone in this.
All right. And Patty, the last question we have for you is if you could go back to younger Patty before any of the addiction, what would you say to her?
Have more fun, play more, ask questions. Nobody knows what they're doing either.
I love that. Oh, well, Patty, thank you so much for everything that you said. I think hearing how somebody's gone through this themselves is so powerful. I'm sure you see that in your work, that people probably hire you because they're like, she knows what she's talking about. She's been me before. Maybe even with harder drugs, I don't know. Like, does it get harder than heroin?
Fentanyl.
Oh, fentanyl. I guess
Killing more people.
Yeah, but wow. I'm so glad that you're alive. I'm so glad that you accidentally fell into this work. I feel like I want more from you. I wish you were on social media so I could just keep hearing from you all day long. But anyway, we're so happy you took the time to talk with us and to walk us through what it's like to go through it and to walk us through what it's like to be on the other side of it. Because a lot of people just need to hear that your brain tells you lies. It's not you. And so many things you said just like touched my heart and broke my heart. And I'm so happy that we had some time with you. So thank you.
I'm really happy that I got to be here because just watching you guys, it's like, I know your audience, you told me is 20 to 40, and those are rough years. And nobody was around, like nobody was sober that was passing anything down to me. So it's just like, those are years of feeling a little bit lost and finding yourself, whether you're an addict or you're not an addict, whether you drink, you don't drink in some area, right? So hopefully something in all the babbling I did, like I'll reach somebody. It might not even be about drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. And that's not your job, right? Whatever's meant to land with people listening will land. And I know a lot of it landed for us, and our listeners are us. So I promise something you said, a lot of what you said landed, and we'll leave them with even more. Patty, we'd love for you to share your piece of gold with our listeners.
Okay. Well, this is funny because you just about said it yourself before you asked the last question. So I was looking, Gore Vidal, Tennessee Williams, like all these people I love, like who has a quote. And then I thought, like, who spoke to you? Right. And I mentioned David Bowie. So I'm going to read a section of my favorite song, which the song is called Rock and Roll Suicide. And the line is, "Oh no, love, you're not alone. You're watching yourself, but you're too unfair. Got your head all tangled up, but if I could only make you care. Oh no, love, you're not alone, no matter what or who you've been, no matter what or where you've seen. All the knives seem to lacerate your brain. I've had my share. I'll help you with the pain. You're not alone."
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.